Susan spotted Miyuki from across the intersection, shivering in the late winter gust on Toronto's Dundas Street. Even in a city known for broken hearts, Miyuki looked utterly defeated, hands balled tight at her sides, face blotched red, blinking against tears that threatened to spill at any moment. She stood near the corner, near the glowing sign of the Tokyo Night Host Club, eyes flicking anxiously from door to door as if expecting a miracle to stumble past. Susan approached, journalistic instincts on high alert.
Are you all right?
Miyuki hesitated, then faltered into her story.
She'd come to Canada for language school, hoping for adventure, something cinematic. Instead, she'd found Ricky. Charismatic, fashionable Ricky, with movie star hair and a laugh that curled around her insecurities like smoke.
He'd first sat next to her in a coffee shop adjacent to the host club, his questions gentle, his English immaculate.
But yesterday I found out he has a tattoo, Yakuza tattoo.
She described the ink, a red carp spiraling up Ricky's ribs, flames licking just above his hip bone. Traditional, unmistakable. Miyuki's new friends at the club had giggled about it at first, then fallen dead silent. Do not cross Ricky, one warned. He is Kanji's nephew. And so the debts had begun. Tiny at first, a drink here, a private booth there. Then came the pressure. Dinner at a back table, a bottle of champagne, each signed on Miyuki's tab. Bloated charges that ballooned her account. $10, $100, $2,000 overnight. Until she found herself standing on that cold street, praying for kindness from strangers. Susan knew a hook when she saw one. Her own background was more analytical, more clinical, head researcher at the Canadian Romance Scam Task Force, with hundreds of hours logged dissecting patterns of emotional fraud. Her romantic name, Susan Valentine, was a running joke among her colleagues, a twist of fate for someone who had never quite believed in hearts and flowers herself. That night, Susan took Miyuki's cue and went to the cafe that bordered the infamous Tokyo Night Host Bar. She ordered bitter black coffee and waited, noting every detail. The hostesses with practiced smiles, the parade of well-dressed young men rotating through their shifts. It took less than 10 minutes for Ricky to notice the outsider. He swept over, all casual assurance and subtle perfume, as if Susan had been an old friend he'd been waiting to meet. Ricky's approach had a studied rhythm, honed by years on both sides of the Pacific. Small talk, flirtation, gentle questions about Susan's life. He mentioned the club, just in passing, inviting her for one drink, my treat, the gateway move.
One drink, my treat.
But behind the charm, Susan caught something colder. The quick measuring glances, the passing nods to tattooed men who lingered near the entrance, their eyes shielded behind expensive sunglasses. What most women didn't know was the host club was far more than a mere nightlife venue. It was an ecosystem, a glamorous trap for lonely office workers, many recently immigrated, some just passing through. To the uninitiated, the environment glittered with insincere warmth, velvet booths, twinkling lights, bottles named for presidents and potentates. But behind the scenes, a careful choreography unfolded. Hosts like Ricky were actors, but their script was co-written by shadowy investors with backgrounds far darker than their glitzy facades. Ricky, born Riku Nakamura, was a second cousin to Kanji Watanabe, a mid-level enforcer for the Azuma Gumi, a Yakuza family with vested interests in overseas entertainment assets. Ricky's tattoo wasn't just decoration. It marked his status, both as a lure and a warning. Hosts in his tier were expected to keep clients paying, no matter the method: charm, manipulation, or, if necessary, intimidation. Over the weeks that followed, Susan documented the mechanics firsthand. At first, her sponsorship for Ricky was affordable: a coffee, a drink, a friendly cover charge. But the price increased with her supposed affection. Within days, the club's business model unfolded. The more private time a woman bought with her host, the higher the fees, rising exponentially: $10 the first night, $2,000 by the end of the week. Women like Susan, or Miyuki, were soon spending entire paychecks not just on actual contact, but on gifts, club exclusivity charges, and the illusion of being special. It wasn't just transactional, it was psychological warfare, orchestrated by hosts whose livelihoods depended on keeping sponsors loyal and indebted. Susan kept up her act, playing the part while draining her own bank account for evidence gathering. She was embedded now, watching Ricky laugh at her jokes, noticing the coded signals between him and the Yakuza lookouts at the bar's threshold. Every interaction felt like a page from a script designed to ensnare. And at night, back in her lonely apartment, Susan reflected on the dark irony. She, a romance scam expert, risking her own savings and sanity to crack a case built on unhealthy love. What Susan discovered would form the backbone of her exposé, though she'd never share it with anyone in quite the same personal terms. The world of the host bar was a seductive stage, its actors playing parts scripted by the underworld, exploiting loneliness and longing for profit. And in the end, all debts, whether emotional or financial, came due.